Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Life Struggles. If you haven't seen the first part of my reaction to Answers in Genesis's video about the Big Bang, check here. In this video, we'll continue to look at the arguments against the Big Bang. They actually do talk about the Big Bang a little bit in this video, and I will continue to show you why scientifically and biblically they are wrong. With that being said, let's continue the video.
Well, there's another interesting fact about the moon, and that is that it produces every few years, somewhere on the Earth, a solar eclipse. And the moon slides right across our line of vision and completely covers the disk of the moon. The reason that it does this is because the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but it is 400 times closer to us than the sun. And scientists tell us that there are 181 moons in our solar system, and there's no other moon-planet relationship that produces a total solar eclipse. That looks designed, not an accident.
Designed? Yes. Young? No. There is zero evidence for that. Also, with science, you shouldn't have a preconceived notion of what answer is correct until you gather evidence. YEC first decided the universe was young, then gathered evidence to prove what they decided was true, while ignoring absolutely everything else.
We've put men on the moon. We've left equipment on the moon. We've brought back rocks from the moon. We know some things about how the moon operates, but they have no idea how the moon came into existence.
Studying the moon as it is now is what helps scientists to determine where it came from.
So let's see what they know about the origin of the solar system. And as I've already indicated, they believe that the solar system came from a giant gas cloud that eventually evolved into the sun and then flattened out and produced the rings, and those rings became planets. And here in aerospaceweb.org, you can see that it's a simple 5-step process. But there are serious problems with that naturalistic theory. One is that the Earth is 70% covered with liquid water. It is the only known place in the universe where there's liquid water, and liquid water is absolutely essential for biological life.
That's probably why we have life, because we have water.
If the Earth was a little bit closer to the sun, our oceans would boil to steam. If it was a little bit farther from the sun, our oceans and lakes would freeze all the way to the bottom.
While I do believe God created everything, from a naturalist perspective, we have life on Earth because Earth is the planet that is perfect for life. It's the opposite of what he's saying. It's not that Earth was created for life, which I do believe it was. It's that this is the only planet life can evolve on. Nothing he has said in the last 20 minutes disproves the Big Bang or hardly even talks about it.
Then there's the fact that if we still count Pluto, which was demoted from being a planet in 2006, but is being reconsidered, but if we count Pluto and the 4 inner planets, they're all solid planets. But the 4 Jovian planets of Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus, they're gas giants with a liquid center. You can't land on those planets. That seems kind of odd if it's all the result of a slowly spinning gas cloud.
Wow, after 20 minutes, he finally talks about the Big Bang. Also, it took me 5 seconds on Google to answer this. The temperature of the early solar system explains why the inner planets are rocky and the outer ones are gaseous. As the gases coalesce to form a proto-sun, the temperature in the solar system rose. In the inner solar system, temperatures were as high as 2000 Kelvin, while in the outer solar system, it was as cool as 50 Kelvin. It's not surprising he dismisses this without ever trying to find and say the explanation. This is what Answers in Genesis and Young Earth Creationism is known for.
The sun is 98% helium and hydrogen. The 3 planets closest to the sun are only 1% of those elements. They have different atmospheres. Mercury has almost no atmosphere. Mars is very thin atmosphere. Venus has a very dense, hot atmosphere. And Earth's atmosphere is just right for life.
This is actually quite easy to explain, and some of it I could do on my own without even looking it up online. Mercury is too close to the sun to have an atmosphere. Why does Venus have a thick atmosphere? Venus's CO2, the carbon dioxide, stays in vapor form in its atmosphere because Venus hasn't had surface water for a long time. The resulting greenhouse, coupled with its solar proximity, which means it's really close to the sun, evidently helps to keep it that way. I got that from NASA's website. Ooh, also from NASA's website. Solar wind and radiation are responsible for stripping the Martian atmosphere, transforming Mars from a planet that could have supported life billions of years ago into a frigid desert world, according to new results from NASA's MAVEN spacecraft. Also from NASA's website. See how easy it is to use Google?
We think we know the story of the solar system, but only comparison with other systems can tell us if that story is universal. Now watch what they just did. They just changed horses in the middle of the stream. They start out saying, we think we know the story, and then they switch to a different question. We're not sure whether that story is unique or not. Well, I don't want to know whether it's unique. I want to know whether the story is true. And they don't know.
Well, perhaps people who don't understand branches of science shouldn't hold a 1.5-hour lecture talking about things they don't understand. What the article seems to me to be saying is they have an understanding of how our solar system came to be. What they don't want to assume is uniformism. You know, the thing that Answers in Genesis is always ranting against.
2011, scientists tell us, we found that the Earth and the Moon, as well as Martian and other meteorites, which are samples of asteroids, have a lower concentration of oxygen-16 than does the Sun. The implication is that we did not form out of the same solar nebula materials that created the Sun. Just how and why remains to be discovered.
For once, Answers in Genesis quoted an article correctly. This article from 9 years later seems to say the Earth was not as good at absorbing oxygen-16. Perhaps a viewer can comment below if you know more about this than I do.
So let's go farther out into space. What about the origin of stars and galaxies? Well, Steven Weinberg is a world-famous astrophysicist. He said, among the most important relics are the structures that we see in the sky. That's relics of the Big Bang. Many stars are grouped into clusters. The clusters themselves, along with loose stars like our sun, are grouped into galaxies, and the galaxies themselves are grouped into clusters of galaxies. That's just observing what's there. We want to know, how did it come into existence? A second great disappointment of astrophysics has been that we still do not have a clear and detailed understanding of how these structures were formed. Now, notice what they don't even know. We don't even know whether the smaller structures formed first and then coalesced into the larger ones, or whether the larger structures formed first and then broke up into the smaller ones.
They know a lot about how it did. They don't know everything and probably never will. We can only look back to about 380,000 years after the Big Bang by observing the cosmic background radiation. Fun fact, that's what caused analog TV and radio static.
Hey, I don't want a lot of detail. Could you just tell me, did a lot of small things get together and make big things, or did big things break apart to make the small things? They don't know.
Science has discovered a lot since 1985. Small, big, doesn't matter.
It's also a bit disturbing that all these estimates of the ages and compositions of the stars rest on elaborate calculations of what is going on inside. But all that we observe is the light emitted from their structures.
Scientists actually discover a lot just by studying the light that's emitted from stars.
And that's still all that we observe. Well, that was 1985, but here in 2002, you have a photograph of the first star being born. Do you know where that photograph was taken? Penn State astronomer Tom Abel's virtual observatory. Do you know where that virtual observatory is? It's in his computer. He didn't see that through a telescope. They've never observed a star born out there in space.
Update: the James Webb Space Telescope has observed and photographed stars being born.
Well, how did his computer make those pictures? Oh, he programmed his computer according to his assumptions about stellar evolution by time and chance and the laws of nature.
Well, he continues to talk a lot about how they've never seen stars born, and also a lot of more of the fake to science thing that he likes to talk about. Most of what he said was from a very long time ago, and I cut it out because now they have seen stars form.
That's their belief. They've never observed that. Again, that's the belief. That's not observable science.
Well, there's a quote: repeat a lie enough and it becomes the truth. Unfortunately, Answers in Genesis is very good at this. Throughout this entire video, they keep talking about observational and historical science. They keep referring to everything as evolution, no matter what they're talking about. And they keep talking about how nobody ever saw it, so we don't know what happened. And unfortunately, things like this cause people to disbelieve in science. And it honestly makes me quite angry.
Well, I go back to Steven Weinberg. He said, "You may have noticed that despite all these brave words, I have not explained the origin of the universe. The reason, of course, is that this is a matter about which scientists still have no clear idea. It may be that we shall never know, just as we may never learn the ultimate laws of nature, but I wouldn't bet on it." Well, if I was a betting man, I'd bet big money they won't figure it all out. Think about it. We have scientists living on this little tiny speck in the universe called Earth around an average sun, which is just a speck in the Milky Way galaxy, which is just a speck among all the galaxies. And these little scientists are going to figure out all the laws of nature? I don't think so.
Why do you think we call them the laws of nature? Because scientists figured a lot of things out. And notice that the Earth and Sun and solar system is special and shows evidence of design when it's convenient for him. When it's not convenient for him, it's nothing special, and nobody can learn anything from studying it. We have had many great scientific minds in the last 100 years. Many of them at least believed in God. The way he dismisses everything really angers me.
David Darling is a British astronomer, PhD, University of Manchester. He says this: "Don't let the cosmologists try to kid you on this one. They have not got a clue either. In the beginning, they will say, there was nothing, no time, space, matter, or energy. Then there was a quantum fluctuation from which," whoa, stop right there. You see what they mean? First there's nothing, and then there's something, and before you know it, they have pulled 100 billion galaxies out of their quantum hats.
I agree with part of this. I don't think something came out of nothing. But a common thing among the young earth creationists is to argue for six-day material creation with God existing and against the Big Bang and what they call naturalism, assuming God does not exist. They never argue for the Big Bang and natural processes with God being behind it. If you do, then the last 30 minutes of their points go away. Also, he's still using quotes from over 20 years ago.
Big Bang theory relies on a growing number of hypothetical entities. Things which we have never observed, inflation, dark matter, and dark energy are the most important.
Inflation already happened, so how can we directly observe it happening? Dark matter and energy. Do you notice the word dark? How much can you see outside when it's dark? Do trees disappear at night? Again, articles from 20 years ago. Science changes quickly.
Inflation, dark matter, and dark energy are the most prominent, never observed. Without them, there would be fatal contradictions between the observations made by astronomers and the predictions of the Big Bang Theory.
Hugh Ross has written many books on this subject. They don't consider any of it as it's not YEC.
An open exchange of ideas is lacking in most mainstream astrophysics conferences. Whereas Richard Feynman could say that science is the culture of doubt, in cosmology today, doubt and dissent are not tolerated, and young scientists learn to remain silent if they have something negative to say about the standard Big Bang model. Those who doubt the Big Bang fear that saying so will cost them their funding. I know of one professor who lost his job at a major university simply for questioning the Big Bang. He wasn't a young earth, Bible-believing creationist.
And this guy's name is... Because I know a guy that caught a fish that was this big.
You see, what we need to understand is what the scientific world has done a very good job of hiding from the public, and that is that scientists are just like everybody else. They're biased.
Answers in Genesis is the most biased of all. Science considers all evidence. You only consider your narrow interpretation of the Bible.
Well, that was 2004. I kept going back to the website over the next few years for this article. And whereas it started with 34 signatures, or 34 scientists from 10 countries, the last time I looked in 2011, it had been signed by over 400 scientists from over 50 countries, many of them from prestigious scientific institutions, bucking the Big Bang.
Science is not either or. Disproving the Big Bang tomorrow does not mean young Earth creation wins. It means science would gather evidence to create a new theory. Perhaps this new theory would be young Earth creation, but I doubt it.
Well, in 2011, Scientific American had a cover story, Quantum Gaps and Big Bang Theory. Why our best explanation of how the universe evolved must be fixed or replaced. The article was written by Paul Steinhardt, who is the Albert Einstein Professor of Science and Director of the Princeton Center for Theoretical Science at Princeton University. Not a small-time, insignificant institution.
So he believes it's prestigious, but this is the same type of place that states non-young Earth creation types of things, and he doesn't believe anything they say.
The title of his article, The Inflation Debate, with the sub-question, is the theory at the heart of the modern cosmology deeply flawed? Steinhardt thinks the inflation theory is deeply flawed, and he has proposed what he calls a cyclic theory.
Cyclic means no beginning or end. It doesn't mean no Big Bang.
He believes in a series of expansions and contractions of multiple universes over trillions of years. But the only universe that we know of is the one we live in. So to believe in multiple universes over trillions of years reveals to me just how bad he thinks the Big Bang Theory is.
So I'm not sure where Dr. Terry thinks these universes are coming from. He seems to think the article writer doesn't believe in the Big Bang. I don't think that's what the writer's saying. Seems like he has a problem with inflation, which is a small part of the Big Bang, not the whole theory. Even multiple universes over trillions of years would be started over and over with Big Bangs.
Well, in the article, he has this chart showing the ultimate growth spurt of the universe. And I want to just expand that a little bit so we can see a little more clearly. Down the vertical, you've got time from the beginning of the Big Bang up at the top, and it's listed in seconds. That's 13.8 billion years. And then across the horizontal, you've got the size of the universe from nothing to its present size. And then you see that line with colors of dots down the chart. And then you see some horizontal lines. And the bottom horizontal line is the limit of direct observation. In other words, they can see only a little bit of that expansion, or if we run it backwards, shrinkage. But actually, they don't observe the expansion of the universe. They observe the redshift of starlight.
Okay, observational evidence. Let's look at an article from Wikipedia. Theoretical cosmologists developing models of the universe have drawn upon a small number of reasonable assumptions in their work. 1. The cosmological principle that demands the universe looks the same way in all directions, which is called isotropic, and has roughly the same smooth mixture of material, homogeneous. The Copernican principle that demands that no place in the universe is preferred. That is, the universe has no starting point. Scientists have tested carefully whether these assumptions are valid and borne out by observation. Observational cosmologists have discovered evidence, very strong in some cases, that supports these assumptions, and as a result, metric expansion of space is considered by cosmologists to be an observed, notice the word observed, feature on the basis that although we cannot see it directly, scientists have tested the properties of the universe, and observation provides compelling confirmation. Here's the article if you want to read the whole thing.
Well, what does that mean? Well, Edwin Hubble, after whom the famous Hubble telescope was named, interpreted that fact of redshift in the 1920s as evidence of the expansion of the universe. And he concluded that the greater the redshift, the farther away the object is, and the faster it's moving away from us.
Congrats, Dr. Terry. You got the second thing correct in only 38 minutes.
And so the idea is that redshift is like that redshift means that the object is moving away from us, and blue shift, it's moving towards us. So they haven't observed the expansion of the universe. They've observed redshift, and they interpret it as evidence of motion. But that may be the wrong interpretation. It's not proven to be the correct interpretation. It's assumed to be the correct interpretation.
Evidence? You see, this is what Young Earth Creation and AIG does. States the theory, says the theory is wrong, but without giving evidence of how or why.
Well, what's the next line up in the chart? Well, that's the limit of indirect observation, which means that they've got to make a bunch of assumptions to add to their observations. Well, if that's the limit of direct observations and then the limit of indirect observations, what's the rest of the chart? Well, that's not based on any observations at all, because we've already used those up. That's pure imagination, based on anti-biblical, naturalistic, atheistic assumption.
If you watch the balloon expand, it's not a stretch to assume the balloon was once small and not full of air. He also just dismissed, for no reason, all of the direct evidence gathered with probes in the Hubble telescope. And now we have the James Webb telescope, which wasn't around at the time of the video. What makes me the most angry is calling it anti-biblical and atheistic. The Big Bang Theory is from a Christian. It was dismissed for implying the universe had a beginning and a beginner. Much of what science uses today in astronomy was from the work of Christian scientists, not the religion, but scientists that are Christian, that dedicated their work to God and the belief He made everything. You can read the linked wiki article for the full list, but here's some of them. Maybe you've heard of this guy, Isaac Newton. He was a prominent scientist during the scientific revolution. He discovered gravity. Enoch Fitch Burr, astronomer and congregational church pastor, who lectured extensively on the relationship between science and religion. He once stated, "An undevout astronomer is mad." Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, sorry, I don't speak French, a French Jesuit paleontologist, co-discovery of the Peking man, noted for his work on evolutionary theory and Christianity. Ooh, you can believe in evolution and be a Christian. Also, Lord Kelvin. At the University of Glasgow, he did important work in the mathematical analysis of electricity and the formation of the first and second laws of thermodynamics. Young Earth creation loves these laws, and the guy that helped invent them did not believe the Earth was 6,000 years old.
Sir Fred Hoyle is a very famous astrophysicist. He died in 2001, famous English astronomer. He said, "Science today is locked into paradigms. Every avenue is blocked by beliefs that are wrong. And if you try to get anything published by a journal today, you will run up against a paradigm or a model, and the editors will turn it down."
Because it's pseudoscience, they know they will have 0.00000 chance of getting published.
You've maybe heard this. It's often said by evolutionists. They say creationists aren't real scientists because they don't publish their research in the peer-reviewed scientific journals. Well, that's false. They do publish their scientific research in peer-reviewed journals. They just don't publish their obviously creationist research in those journals.
When theories have zero evidence, I rank them with flat Earth. They should not be published.
Because it's not going to get past the editor.
Science is not closed off to new ideas like he thinks they are. After this video was posted, discoveries from the James Webb Space Telescope are showing that many theories and models might be wrong, and they are open to new ideas.
But they do publish other kinds of research in those journals.
If the research is based on actual scientific fact, I support Christians publishing in scientific journals. I am a huge fan of Hugh Ross, and I follow his work.
Let's summarize then. Regarding the origin of the cosmic egg, well, that was unknown and an uncomfortable question. Regarding something coming from nothing, well, that's a scientific absurdity. The origin of the moon is unknown. The origin of the solar system is unknown. The origin of stars and galaxies is unknown. So the Big Bang, I submit that is an unbelievable myth.
Well, I agree. I think this is the third time I've agreed, maybe. The first two are true. And again, if you add God to this, the first two work. We have competent theories for the others, theories that were available for him to look up. Instead, he stated a lot of things from 30 to 50 years ago. In part 2, one part to go. At least they got a little bit into the Big Bang. They did present some science, what they call science, and I call not the truth. And hopefully you can still see how Answers in Genesis likes to twist things around, ignore things, and basically ignore science while promoting pseudoscience. Please subscribe so that you can see part 3 when it comes out, and thank you for watching.